UFC Fight Night Vegas 64, Rodriguez versus Lemos takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Ramona Pascual versus Tamires Vidal. I'm going to go with the underdog straight away of Ramona Pascual. I don't really know what Tamires Vidal has done, other than look like the next evolution of Ciara Eubanks, to say that she's definitely going to win this fight. Ramona Pascual's fought some very underrated fighters in her career. She hasn't beat too many great ones, but the way she's looked against, Josiane Nunes, who's a monster, and I mean that in a lot of ways. Jocelyn Edwards is very good as well. Very good as well. Very underrated. And I feel as though Ramona Pascual's going to be a little bit too big in the bantamweight division, and I don't really know what to sort of give credit to Tamires Vidal for. You know what I'm saying? I'm really not sure. I mean, she's fought in LFA and she's fought some decent competition up in her career, but, she lost to Carol Rosa a couple of years ago, and Carol Rosa's pretty good, so I don't mind that. But then she only won a fight against Ailin Perez because Ailin Perez illegally kneed her in the face a bunch of times. I don't really know how to do this one, so I'm going to have to go with the underdog here, because Ramona Pascual's a very large woman for the division. She's looked good against people that we know are somewhat good anyway. And I just feel as though she's going to have a bit of a size advantage over this girl. She's already got a 2-inch height advantage. I feel as though, she's got a wagon on her as well, so that's going to keep her body mass localized. She trains at Syndicate MMA. I know a lot more about Ramona Pascual, whereas it's like, this is where we find out if Tamires Vidal is any good. So I don't like finding out if someone's actually good when they're a favourite quite sizably. So I'm going to go with Ramona Pascual, despite how lesbian Tamires Vidal looks. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Jake Hadley versus Carlos Candelario. I am going to go with Jake Hadley. To win this one. And he is favoured to win this one. And the vast majority of people are really, really picking him to win. He's a 3-1 favourite. There's a lot of hype on Jake Hadley. But is it justified? I'm losing hope that it is. I'm picking him here over Carlos Candelario. He should beat the likes of Carlos Candelario. And on Tapology, I've got 92% of people agreeing with me. A lot of people are picking Jake Hadley here. But man, I know Alan Nascimento's a massive guy for the weight class and a very good guy as well. Trains under Charles Oliveira. Wicked jiu-jitsu for the flyweight division. And Hadley had a decent scrap with him. Lost it based on control time every round. But, he was scrambling around, trying submission positions. Just watching Carlos Candelario get out-hustled by Tatsuro Taira for 3 straight rounds in his last fight, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence to pick him to win this one. Plus, you've got to look at the fight that he had against Victor Altamirano. The fact that he hasn't really beaten anyone too good. Jake Hadley's fought some pretty good competition outside of the UFC. So I'm going to go with Jake Hadley getting this one done. I think he'll be able... If he goes first with the grappling and doesn't think he's some whiz on the feet and then wait until it gets a little bit out of hand before he decides to shoot. If he just goes first with the grappling, I don't see Candelario giving him too many problems defensively on the ground. I think Jake Hadley's probably going to get this one done by submission, rear naked choke, I'll say, in the second round. Weirdly strong in those positions. Doesn't really need to get it under the neck, so I think it's a pretty trustworthy submission to go for. And he doesn't really slow down either. So I'm going to go with Jake Hadley getting this one done. Hopefully, the loss, Leon Edwards winning the belt as well, has motivated him to up his game. And I reckon he'll get this one done. But I don't agree with the massive gap in the odds. Candelario's not bad, so I'll go Hadley getting this one done. Moving on. Up the card, Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Luidvik Sholinian. I'm going to go with Johnny Munoz Jr. Luidvik Sholinian, I used to have respect for him as an opponent, but Jack Shaw fought this guy. And I know that he took the fight on short notice, but he was ready to make weight, and he made it easily. Like, he was in shape for a fight. But I don't care that he took it on short notice. Jack Shaw had one arm in that fight. And listen, Jack Shaw's good. I picked Simone to beat him because I didn't think he was that good yet. Maybe he would have been if he took it a little bit slower. But, man, Sholinian just had nothing for him in that fight. And I can't watch that happen to someone. Listen, I've seen Johnny Munoz Jr. get caught by Tony Gravely. You know, I've seen him get out-hustled by Nate Maness, and those are very good bantamweights themselves. Solid bantamweights. Nate Maness is on this card. I don't know if I'm going to pick him, though, because I don't know if I'm trusting him down at flyweight, but I'm going to have to go with Johnny Munoz Jr. here. He got a decent win over Jamie Simmons. It's not the best of opponent, I understand. I just don't trust Luidvik Sholinian after what I saw in his fight against Jack Shaw. He just didn't have anything. Like, have something. Have something. You know what I'm saying? Something. Like, throw something. Land something. Get a takedown. The guy had one arm. Jack Shaw literally didn't use one of his arms. And, like, he literally gave up on submission attempts because he literally couldn't squeeze with his arm. Like, it's just... He looked so bad. So, I'm going to have to side with Johnny Munoz Jr. Big guy for the division as well. I reckon he finds the finish at some point in this fight. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. So, I'll say rear naked choke again. 2 in a row. Moving on. Up the card. Jinh Frey versus Polyana Viana. I'm going to go with Polyana Viana here. I hope we don't get another performance like her last one where she just lays on her back. But... I'm going to go with Polyana Viana over Jinh Frey. I've watched Jinh Frey, you know, get submitted in the 3rd round with an armbar by Kay Hansen and leave herself in those positions. And, you know, she lost a decision to Vanessa Demopoulos. I don't think Vanessa Demopoulos is that good at all. I think she's actually quite terrible at fighting. And I think she should have lost that fight against Jinh Frey as well. But I just feel like we've seen lesser opponents than Polyana Viana be able to defeat Jinh Frey, and at the age of 37, I think it's time to start focusing on other things than fighting. Whereas, you know, you've got Polyana Viana, 30 years of age, coming into her prime as a fighter. Still learning, still got time to evolve. She beat Mallory Martin, beat Emily Whitmire, both by armbar. I can see this being an armbar as well. And she's got a triangle armbar, another armbar in her career, another armbar in her career. So it seems to be something that she like immediately goes to when she's on the ground. And she even has a KO win over Amanda Ribas earlier in her career. So I'm going to side with Polyana Viana getting this one done. Doing good on the feet. Making Jinh Frey shoot a takedown she doesn't really want. And then latching up an armbar or a triangle on bottom. So I'll go for Polyana Viana submission. Moving on. Up the card, Mario Bautista versus Benito Lopez. It's good to see Benito Lopez again. It's been a long time since we've seen him. It's been 2 years, over 2 years, since we've seen the likes of Benito Lopez. Am I going to trust him to come back after 2 years and beat the likes of Mario Bautista? That's the question. Because Mario Bautista, in his last fight against Brian Kelleher, he beat Kelleher easier than Umar Nurmagomedov did. You know what I mean? Like, that's saying something. And he looked good in that fight as well. Very, very good. And very crisp and clean. And he looked like he was... I don't know about you guys, but watching that Brian Kelleher fight with Mario Bautista, it looked like a guy who was like... Everything's kind of making sense now. You know what I mean? Before, when I've watched him in his career, it's been like, you know, he's doing okay, and then he finds the flying knee out of nowhere against Miles Johns. You know, he loses to Sandhagen, Trevin Jones. But, you know, he's always looked hesitant in those fights and unsure of what he's doing at times, and it's led him to get caught here and there. I feel as though in his last fight he seemed fully confident, and the fact that he's 29 now, training at the MMA Lab, a great gym, I feel like his last fight things started clicking into place. Whereas with Benito Lopez, 2 years off, I can see him being the hesitant one, and Mario Bautista picking up like a first round KO or something like that. So I'm going to go with Mario Bautista getting this one done. Another sensational performance by first round TKO. Moving on. Up the card, Miranda Maverick versus Shayna Young. I'm going with Miranda Maverick. I think she's very underrated. I think Macy Barber's very underrated, and I think that Miranda Maverick clearly beat Macy Barber as well, and she got robbed in that decision. So I'm going to pick her to win this one. Training at Elevation Fight Team, great gym, 25 years of age, ton of time to improve, coming off a win as well. Had that fight with Erin Blanchfield, but Blanchfield is a great wrestler, so I don't really blame her for that. Actually, I probably will pick Blanchfield against McCann, thinking about it now. And Shayna Young, just, you know, not the best. Gina Mazzani win is whatever. I don't really care about it. Stephanie Egger's good on the ground. I think Miranda Maverick can do similar things. She's got good wrestling as well. And I just don't see... I don't see Shayna Young making Miranda Maverick look like a a Gina Mazzani in any way whatsoever. So I'm definitely going to side with Miranda Maverick winning this fight. I think she's just a way more technical opponent. So I'll go with her winning this by 30-27. Unanimous decision, schooling Shayna Young and making her look like she doesn't belong. Yeah, Macy Barber's underrated and Miranda Maverick clearly beat her. So I'm going to go with Miranda pretty clearly. Moving on. Up the card, Darrick Minner versus Shayilan Nuerdianbeke. I'm going with Shayilan Nuerdianbeke here. I think he's going to win this fight very clearly. This dude is weirdly strong. I think it's something that we're starting to notice in his career. And his cardio's gotten better as well. And once a time, I'm looking at a guy who loses to Joshua Kalibau and I'm thinking, you know, terrible. But now I'm thinking, you know what? Joshua Kalibau beat Sung Woo Choi, took Jordan to a draw that arguably he could have won. You know, he only lost to Jarlin Turner, and in hindsight, that's not that bad now that we see what Jarlin Turner's become. So my opinion of him has changed, and therefore my opinion of Shayilan has changed. But also for his recent performances, dude's weird strong, knows what he needs to do, dangerous and powerful on the feet, young guy as well, still got time to improve. Really weirdly strong. Again, I'll keep mentioning that in the grappling. This dude is, I don't know what he's on. He might not be on anything, and if he isn't, God bless the rest of these guys in the bantamweight division, because Shayilan Nuerdianbeke is a danger in the featherweight division, sorry. Did I say featherweight or bantamweight? I meant featherweight. But he's a danger to these guys. And for Darrick Minner, he's actually pulled off a couple upsets. You know what I mean? Where I didn't expect him to win and stuff like that. But, you know, he beat Terrence McKinney. So he's one of those guys where he can get the upset. But with Shayilan's style, he just seems to be like a low-risk type fighter. Whereas, like, the guys that this guy's beaten, like, Rosa gets wild sometimes and goes for crazy stuff. And Terrence McKinney's crazy and all over the place at times as well. So I can see him getting a win over those guys if they underestimate him and stuff like that. But with Shayilan, he's so methodical and just, like, sticks to control and get into a dominant position and winning from there and playing it good on the feet and being very technical on the feet. I don't see him getting too wild and paying for it like other guys maybe have in the past. So I'm going to go with Shayilan getting this one over Darrick Minner 29-28 in a pretty competitive fight. I rate Darrick Minner, so I can see him getting a decent performance off. We move on to another fight up the card, which is Mark Madsen versus Grant Dawson. I'm going to go with Grant Dawson here. Mark Madsen is stinking out the place with some of his performances, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Vince Piquel's pretty good, but it was a close fight, and he's edging his way past these guys. And Clay Guida is pretty good, not really though. And he's edging past Clay Guida in a very close fight, a very, very close fight. And I don't like that he's getting close wins. And I know Grant Dawson has also had some of them as well, but you know, he's had a lot more finishing moments. I think he's got a much higher finishing potential than a guy like Mark Madsen. I think his stand-up's a lot more unorthodox. And I don't see Madsen finishing him on the feet. So I can see Grant Dawson being a bit too, like, variant on the feet. Like, he's throwing head kicks and body kicks at range. Whereas most opponents against Mark Madsen, they just sort of, like, come forward and box against him. And I feel as though, like, Grant Dawson's going to give him a little too many things to think about in this fight. Do I see him out grappling Mark Madsen? I don't. But do I see him just being able to outstrike him on the feet with some, like, flamboyant striking style? I think I do. And I don't see Madsen really getting him to the ground either, as in Grant Dawson, because Madsen isn't really that good offensively. You know what I mean? Like, Madsen's, like, best move, arguably, is like a single collar knee to the body, is what I'm noticing from him. Like, he's really good at controlling a clinch, but he doesn't really get any finishes from there. So I'm definitely going to side with Grant Dawson, picking him apart at range, chopping at his legs. Plus, you've got to consider, again, Madsen's 38 years of age. So if there's someone carrying an injury into this fight, it's very likely going to be Madsen instead of Grant Dawson, the 28-year-old, 10 years his junior. You know what I mean? Like, it's just... There's also that stat when there's a certain age difference, where the younger guy wins like 70-something% of the time. So I'm going to look towards that as well to sort of save me. So I'm going with Grant Dawson here. 29-28, close decision. He gets it done as the fight goes on, maybe. Moving on. Up the card, Tagir Ulanbekov versus Nate Maness. I'm going to go with Tagir Ulanbekov. Nate Maness just had nothing against Umar Nurmagomedov, and it really did worry me, in all honesty. Like, listen, Sergey Morozov isn't even that good of a bantamweight in the UFC. He really isn't. But he gave Umar scrambles. Kelleher gave Umar scrambles. And Nate Maness just sort of laid there and accepted it. And you just lost Nurmagomedov. Now you're fighting Ulanbekov after a massive weight cut down to the flyweight division. I don't like that for Nate Maness. Maybe he can get a little bit lucky on the feet and land a KO blow, and maybe he's going to be a bit dangerous in this flyweight division, and he just realised he was a bit too small for bantamweight maybe, but I don't know if I trust his chin too much either, because I know he finished gravely, but he almost got finished in that fight as well, and got saved by the bell at the end of one of the rounds. So I'm going to go with Tagir Ulanbekov being able to control his way into this fight, and win this 29-28 as the rounds go on. Nate Maness might be a little bit wild for him early on, but I think we're going to see Tagir get a dominant position in the last 2 rounds, take the back, not get a choke, but just be on the back. You know what I mean? And win the rounds that way against Nate Maness. I just didn't like what I saw from Nate Maness against Umar. He just seemed like he was just okay to lose on the ground, just accepting, oh, please just let me go to a decision. It was like he had nothing on his on the ground and was just praying, basically, which I never like to see. So, you know, Tagir Ulanbekov lost to Tim Elliott, and I picked Tim Elliott to beat him, but you know, Tim Elliott's pretty good and scrambly, and he actually tries to win. And also he was cheating quite a bit in that Tagir fight by grabbing the cage and grabbing the gloves and stuff like that. So he was O'Malleying his way through it. But I'm gonna side with Tagir. In hindsight, a split decision win over Alan Nascimento that maybe he should have lost still shows that he's a quality grappler, because Alan Nascimento's a beast. And so's Bruno Silva. He's a good fighter as well at flyweight. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's a good fighter at flyweight as well. We move on. I'm going to Tagir Ulanbekov by decision. We move on. Josh Parisian versus Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman. I'm going to go with Josh Parisian here. Chase Sherman is like a, you know, I like Chase Sherman. He seems nice, but I feel like he's just like, you snapped a 4-fight losing streak to beat Jared Vandeera. You know? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you're very blessed to be here. And Vandeera's got downs, so it's like, it's tough. And fair play, he didn't get his legs chewed up like that Waldo Cortez Acosta guy. You know, and Sherman's definitely going to be like trying his heart out to stay in the UFC at this point. But I feel as though Parisian can mix it up with him and grapple with him a bit. We saw Parisian sort of start to do well in the scrambles against Alan Baudot, who's quite good, trains with Cyril Gahn. And he was able to sort of control him there and get the win via ground and pound. And I can just see the image in my head right now of Chase Sherman being crucifixed on bottom and Parisian's flab just all over him, and Parisian just punching him from side control, crucifix position, and just finishing him there because Sherman hasn't got much gas left or something. So I think they're going to get real scrappy on the feet. But I trust Parisian to be the one to shoot when it matters and start looking to take this to the ground and start working against a cage and doing that stuff in between the striking, even if Sherman might have a striking advantage. So I'm going to go Parisian. Plus, Parisian's quite wild. Spinning attacks, spinning back kicks to the body, spinning back fists. I mean, he got into the UFC with a spinning attack, I'm pretty sure. Or something like that. Or he landed something crazy like that at one point in his career. So, yeah, I'm going to trust him to win this one. I reckon he gets this one done. So we'll go with that. He didn't get signed for that spinning back fist on the Contender Series. He got into he got onto Tough a month later. That's crazy, dude. Anyone else would get signed? Spinning back fist on the Contender Series, he never got signed. I thought he did. Fair play. And he still had to win a bunch. So he's gained a lot of experience. So I'll go with Parisian winning this one. Moving on. Up the card. Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going Daniel Rodriguez. Listen, Neil Magny, there was a time when he was beating guys, and I think his prime has gone a little bit, I reckon. You know, he's had some injuries recently as well. But there was a time when he was beating like Jeff Neal, Robbie Lawler, Li Jing Liang. And then now I'm seeing the split decision to Max Griffin and that sorry performance to Shavkat Rakhmonov. And then losing the grappling match to Joaquim Silva. And I'm starting to think that maybe the injuries are catching up to him. How did he beat Jeff Neal? I don't understand. I'm going D-Rod. I think D-Rod's just going to be a bit too much from on the feet. And Magny on the feet, here's the problem that I have with him here. He's not going to be able to out-grapple D-Rod. D-Rod's got very underrated takedown defense. And he's going to be active here as well. He didn't take much damage against Li Jingliang, even though I thought he should have lost. He didn't take much damage against him. I can just see him outboxing Neil Magny. And Magny does a lot of straight punches on the feet. And I think D-Rod's going to be able to deal with that. And in all fairness, you could argue, I know he had a weight advantage over Li Jingliang, but it didn't really come into play because they were just striking at range on the feet. But you could argue that if D-Rod had a full camp, he would just beat Li Jingliang. You know what I mean? Like, he took it on very short notice, to be fair. And he was supposed to be fighting Kevin Holland. And it was on, like, I believe, like 2 weeks' notice, something like that. So he's had a full camp here. On a full camp, he probably would edge a guy like Li Jingliang and beat him. I just think that Neil Magny, his method of fighting is just at range. Ranged strikes. Popping punches out there. Doesn't really do much with the kicks. And if Max Griffin can drop you, I think D-Rod can drop you. And if Max Griffin can I think Max Griffin won that fight. And if he can, D-Rod can as well. And we're not seeing a lot of activity out of Magny as we were usually. 6 months off or 5 months off here. Used to be a very active fighter. And there was a moment where he was out for quite some time. And he didn't look good when he came back. You know what I mean? Like, he beat Jeff Neal in 2021 May. Came back in March of 2022 and, like, basically lost to Max Griffin. So I don't really like that. Getting a bit older. D-Rod's older, but he hasn't had much fight miles. So I'm going to go with D-Rod getting this one done. Outboxing Magny at range and maybe finding a KO in round 2 at some point as well. We move on up the card to another fight, which is Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos. I'm going Marina Rodriguez here. Amanda Lemos is good, but there seems to be like a limit to her power. And she does have a lot of power, to be fair, so respect for that. But Michelle Waterson took that power. Angela Hill took that power. You know what I'm saying? Mizuke Inoue took that power and took her to a decision. So it's very obvious that the power that she has doesn't work against a certain level of opponent. Montserrat Ruiz, Livia Hinata Souza, they aren't the best of fighters. You know what I'm saying? They aren't really known for their striking either. Montserrat Ruiz, I think the only way she's won fights so far in UFC is just like getting a headlock on Cheyenne Velismas. Cheyenne Delidze. So I feel like I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez. She's got good boxing. She's got a good chin. She's got good power herself, which I think is going to be a surprise for Amanda Lemos, because this is a time where she's going to have to actually worry about things coming back her way. The only time people have really given Marina Rodriguez problems is if they've grappled with her. And Yan Xiaonan's very underrated. She just beat Mackenzie Dern as well. So I'm going to side towards Marina Rodriguez. She looked great against Michelle Waterson. I think round 1 was pretty even in Lemos versus Waterson before Lemos got that guillotine. And Lemos does have finishing potential, but Marina Rodriguez, split decision to Carla Esparza, and that's it on her career. That's it. And that's from grappling. And Cynthia Calvillo got mount on her in the 3rd round and did some damage there, and that's from grappling. So if this is going to be a stand-up fight, Marina Rodriguez has been on a roll and arguably should be getting a title shot instead of Zhang Weili. Come at me. I'll argue that. So I'm going to side with her. A little bit crisper in the boxing. Maybe making Lemos miss quite a bit early on. Just stinging her up at range. Stuff like that. And because it's a 5-rounder, I worry about Lemos a little bit more. Because in the back of her mind, as she's swinging those heavy shots, she knows she can't do that for 5 rounds. So I think we see a hesitant Lemos do good early on. Lose as the fight goes on. I'll go 48, 47, 49, 46. Marina Rodriguez, but she loses the 1st round. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.